Monday, March 19th meeting to order. Will you please join with me? Judy, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by publication in the Press of Atlantic City on January the 5th, 2018, and the Atlantic County Record on January the 10th, 2018. Mr. Gashard?
Present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Silva?
Here.
Mayor Schenker?
I'd like to take a moment of silence for private reflection. Okay. We now have a proclamation to the Oakcrest High School history and JROTC students. Mr. Sarah, would you join me up front, please? Would you have all the students come and be right behind us? Absolutely. We'll get up to the microphone. Yeah. Sure.
I'd actually call the Oakcrest students if you guys can come up and join us, please. Yeah, right up behind us, guys.
Everybody? Stand on this side. Okay.
Everybody?
Don't be bad. Okay. All right, this proclamation is to the Mr. Sarah's history class students. Whereas Oakcrest High School students sought a way to lift the spirits and meet some of the needs of our U.S. military communities and to provide an opportunity for the students to express their appreciation to all who serve our nation. Whereas Oakcrest High School students from Mr. Vince Sarah's history classes and Master Sergeant Patrick Murphy's JROTC classes teamed up with Light Rock 96.9 and the American Recreation's Military Services to send Valentine's Day cards and care packages to American soldiers around the world. Whereas the students gathered donations from over 130 homemade cards, as well as gifts and other items that are welcomed by our troops. Now, therefore, we, the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, on this day, March 19, 2018, do hereby recognize Oakcrest High School Mr. Sarah's history class students. In honor of their remarkable accomplishment, these students have worked hard to communicate encouragement and express gratitude to the brave men and women serving our nation throughout the world. By their actions, they represent the support and goodwill of every resident of the township and our troops, and we are grateful for their efforts, and it's signed by the mayor and all the township committee.
I'd just like to say I've been a teacher at Oakcrest High School for 13 years, and probably one of the things that has impressed me most is the love and respect that our students have for our active military and for our veterans. It's one of the things that makes me proud to be their teacher, and it gives me great hope for the future of this country. So I'd like to thank everybody in honoring our students today, so thank you. First, we have Cleary Brady. So Cleary, if you could come on.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
We have Sarah Brosman. Jordan Castor. Katie Compton. Madison Dearborn, who's not here with us tonight. Gianna Dennison, who's not here tonight. Charisse Jervinko. Victoria Herring. And this one's special because it's his birthday tonight. Hayden Horsey. Mike Liberty, who could not join us tonight. Colin Luterans. Lance Pengallen. Oh, sorry, I can never say his last name properly. I apologize. But Lance is not here tonight. Mariah Pugmire. Kaylin Richardson. Kim Shaw. Andrew Thompson. And you have the ROTC. These are our junior ROTC students. Dante Batiste. Summer Doughty. Joshua Einwechter. Nick Fraley. And Bianca Lugo.
Did you want a picture of all these? You got it? You got them all? Well, thank you. Thank you for all your efforts. You're wonderful. Forward photos too.
Everybody in here. There we go. There we go.
Thanks, Harry.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Who's going to sign? Is somebody going to sign it?
Somehow expecting more kids. We certainly signed enough.
Yeah, there are a lot of them that weren't here.
Huh?
A lot weren't here.
I know. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the presentation of the landfill redevelopment update. Phil, did you want to say a few words first?
Probably best things for
Okay.
Well, that's
I
a
hope
hard
your
act to follow.
tidings of good, looking forward to tidings of good news.
Yeah, well,
Smile.
got news, but
Smile.
it's not bad news. That's a tough act to follow. I'm sure I won't get any applause for mine. I do have an update memo.
He'll take your picture.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it.
You have one.
Yeah, we're good.
So this is for light reading when you get home, but I'm going to kind of just go through some of this.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Phil's got a PDF too, so. I can't believe it's almost
almost 11 months since I was here last time. I'm going to go through the highlights here, and then any questions, we can get into some of the detail. Most of our time since I was here last April has been, we submitted the HDSRF application to the DEP. That has not been reviewed yet. That's one issue. I did talk to them last 2 weeks ago at a meeting I was at, and it is, there's 2 other applications in front, and then it's up for review, so that's a good thing. Our solar developer, as you recall, is Citizens Energy, and they have had ongoing dialogue since they first got back. I think that was at the end of 16. Their preliminary interconnection information, and have been attempting to see if there's a way to use the full capacity. You may remember last time we had 2 projects, one on the landfill and the one around the periphery. The periphery project would feed the special services school and ACIT. After most of the second half of 17 was spent with Citizens working with Atlantic City Electric, Phil shook some things loose with ACE for us to finally get the appropriate people, and we got the appropriate people in the room. The determination was that the maximum that the Atlantic City Electric grid can handle is 3 megawatts, which was kind of the preliminary feedback we got from the PJM, but we were looking for alternate circuits, different ways, other alternatives to try to solve that, increase the interconnection capacity that could be done without multi-million-dollar investments, which is what would be required, and the developer would need to do that, and that makes the project, you know, undoable, basically. But the 3 megawatts works on the existing infrastructure without any significant upgrades, and that can be placed on the landfill, so we're kind of back to where our original plan, and that will go to the schools. So we will still get the benefit of providing the schools with a steady, lower cost, long-term energy, and there'll be a project. That makes our overall redevelopment budget a little skinnier, so we're evaluating that right now. I'll go through the schedule, and then I'm going to come back for questions. So we anticipate that over the next 3 months, we're tightening up some of our numbers. We've been doing that since we got the final word from Atlantic City Electric in January, seeing if we can bring our budget down a little bit, verifying with Citizens our numbers. We already have, we know what those revenue numbers are, and then obviously the HDSRF grant feedback is important to the project. We hope that that's all completed in the next 3 months, and then we can move into essentially filing our paperwork, which is a landfill closure plans, any other approvals we need, pinelands, et cetera, and look to move toward being able to break ground sometime in 2019, beginning of 19, and throughout the 19, toward the end, be constructed, installed, et cetera. We're also during this time obviously looking for other uses for the property. I know everybody's looking for other uses for the industrial park out there. We've had some we've talked about in the past, and some of those are possibly still on the table. We're also going to continue to look for that. We think the project can work right now with just this solar, but again, it's going to be a skinny opportunity. We're also looking for other availability of funds to support the project. There's a couple of possible, I know this sounds crazy given the current circumstances, a couple of opportunities with the federal government that might actually be available to us that we're exploring through the Department of Agriculture, and I got to run through some of those things with Phil. That just came out yesterday, an invitation for them for rural project solar opportunities. So that's basically where we are. We've lost 6 to 8, 9 months here from what I originally thought we were going to track we're going to be on. But that's effectively the update.
Why couldn't you get more than 3 million megawatts?
Just so the Atlantic City Electric grid, their infrastructure, the wires, their substation, et cetera, what they said they would need was be a direct feeder line, like a direct line installed all the way back to their substation and some substation upgrades, and it was $2 to $3 to $4 million. So that makes the project undoable.
Well, what's the potential on the 3 million? I know it scales back your original plan, and now it limits, doesn't it limit?
That would be the cost for that upgrade,
Right.
right? So that's an additional cost on the project. So the potential revenue?
No, early on, you had, I remember at the last time we spoke that you could power more, there would be more than just the schools.
Well,
You
correct.
might be able to do something additional. Does that 3 megawatts now limit that?
No, the schools can take all the 3 megawatts. The schools have the ability to take up to about 4.
Talking of vocational school and special services,
Services.
and what
Yeah.
about HES?
ACIT facilities and the special services school
Okay.
together. And we've worked all the way through with the approval of their board and so forth. We just now, citizens and us, we need to get back to them with the schedule. And
Is there any way to be the source of energy for the other people who are in the industrial park now?
that's possible, and so that's possible once they would come online or after the fact, if Atlantic City Electric upgrades their grid. So the way that they, and again, this is not my area of expertise, but I understand enough to give you some information. The way they have to evaluate it is they have to assume that all the schools are going to go defunct and turn their lights out, and 3 megawatts is going to go back into their grid system, and they need to manage it there. Even though all of our stuff is going to be behind the meter, and obviously it's unlikely that ACIT is going anywhere, they have to make that assumption. So even though the effective net application of a project will likely be 0 additional electrons going into the Atlantic City Electric grid, and it's not, not making this up. They have regulatory requirements with PGM and so forth that require them to evaluate it that way. So until such time as they upgrade their system, or there's an alternative connection that is financially feasible, it's unlikely that additional.
That cuts back significantly on the size of the field you were going to have there, right?
Yeah, it basically limits all that to the landfill. So the plus side is it opens up the other
Parts for
acreage
doing other things.
for other
What
opportunities.
about if there was another type of energy-producing business that wanted to come into there? A conversion type,
Yeah, which we talked about before. It would depend on what they were going to do and how much they were going to provide, and there would be some of the same factors. Some of those other kind of businesses have more of a budget that they can put in and could possibly do some of the upgrades. We had thought about them working and going with the other county facility, the correctional facility, et cetera.
I mean, your time frame here looks like, what, 2020
All the way finished, yeah.
finished?
Commission, yeah. So we expect,
Are we getting the type of approvals out of Trenton that we need?
well, we're not getting the fast review that we need.
Yeah,
But I've got a meeting up there, 2 meetings up there this week, so I'm going to double check on what the status is. If we need, if I need help, I won't be afraid to ask.
Okay.
The 3 megawatt limitation,
Excuse me. Jeff, has the Pinelands lightened up its requirements for you or for us or for every landfill?
I'm sorry, Judy, I did not mean to laugh in the middle of your question, but the Pinelands lightening up their requirements just made me chuckle. So they haven't lightened up, but they've come around to, as you may remember last time I came in here, they did their triage with the U.S. Geologic Service and said that this was a hazardous situation. Well, and we're still working over in Estill Manor too. Well, we finally got our approvals from Pinelands there to do the additional wells that we wanted. We're in wetlands over there, so it's a little bit more of a sensitive area. That landfill is also clean and not impacting anything. It's not actually quite as clean as this one. Yours is the cleanest that I've seen almost ever. But so we don't think the process will be as tedious with the Pinelands this time. Not because they really changed anything yet. There are some discussions about proposed rules and changing how landfills are managed in the Pinelands, but that hasn't made it into the comprehensive management plan yet. They're talking about it, but we think we can get them to make an equivalency determination. Which is
Who's your contact with that? Is that Larry Liggett or?
Well, Larry's there, but Edwin Growski is our
Yeah.
main technical point of contact. And then he's been working with the Geologic Service, as I said.
the 3 megawatt limitation that you have is because of the Atlantic Electric infrastructure. Is the assumption that they would pay the total cost of that if they were upgraded? Or would your project cover any of that cost?
No, any additional interconnection cost the project needs to pay. So
The
that's
project-
why to go
project
above to go to the 4 or the 8 possible that we had for 2 projects in the same area, again, it's multi-million dollars that would be added to the cost of our project, which makes it.
I see. So they would make no contribution to that upgrade then?
No, not unless they have a planned upgrade as part of their maintenance or upgrade of their system. So that's what we would look for in the future, where we could either have additional solar or other energy producing operations on the site that would then be able to feed into the grid. And, they're talking about that, but, that's somewhat of a long-term plan.
Just so I understand the situation, Atlantic City Electric would actually lose all the revenue from that 3 million or so watts that you provide to the school system. Is that not correct? What is their incentive for wanting to make any investments?
Yeah, they would lose the revenue from that, but they're already over capacity, so I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for them. And again, they have regulatory requirements that make them do that crazy assumption I just mentioned, but they also have an obligation to go through these applications, and they have state mandated deadlines for amounts of renewable energy they have to have available and SRECs they have to have. So
Even without this
you're
project,
not wrong, no. It's a double.
even without this project moving as fast or as forward as you'd like to see it with the megawatts, can we close the landfill before that starts?
Well, we have to close the landfill.
That's what I want to know, because
Yeah, we
we've
have
been
to
at,
close
and
the
is the day coming close?
I hope the day's coming close. Again, the plan is to start the closure in beginning of 19 and be
Okay.
installing the solar toward the end of 19.
All right.
That's where we are.
It's a lot. It's a lot
Sure
of
is.
hoops to hop through
It's a
here.
lot of hoops, and it's taken a lot longer than you want and that we want, and we're keeping at it. We're not. We really didn't get very much done last year. I'm disappointed in that. There was a lot of back and forth with Atlantic City Electric, and some miscommunication between citizens and them, and these things happen. But
What percentage of the total site will your effort cover?
well, the landfill. So the property's approximately 40 acres, or almost exactly 40 acres, and the waste or the landfill covers about 17 and a half acres, and a little under 15 acres of that would house the 3 megawatt facility. So there'll be some slopes, and then there'd be a plateau area or a flatter area or a sloped area. That is where the solar array would be installed.
Thank you.
How come, going back to the Pinelands, when you put these solar panels up, doesn't that sort of cap the landfill?
Not really, not consistent with you put your cap in, and then the solar panels are on top of that. They're either ballasted or they're anchored into the ground.
And what is the purpose of the cap?
To prevent exposure to humans and animals and everybody else. So a lot of the areas at the landfill right now already have a sufficient cap over it. There are some areas where there's exposed waste. We would also need to grade it for stormwater management, et cetera. We don't anticipate there'll be any kind of significant amount of fill material we'd need to bring in. We've discussed that already. That's all got to be, certified clean material, obviously. But we think that mostly we can manage most of the material that's out there on site. There's some areas where there's a lot that isn't the waste, and we can grade that and reshape it. But that's some of the paperwork I mentioned we'll get started on in about 3 months.
You mentioned that our landfill is one of the cleanest you've seen. I was just curious, why do you think that is? Because it's not used as heavily as others, or what's the
I
reason
think
for that?
because the nature of some of the soil types of geology out here, the sand, it's infiltrated, and I mean there are some impacts to the groundwater. And when I say clean, that's what I mean. The groundwater beneath the landfill is very clean for a landfill. There are some cations and anions, without getting scientific, that are there, but the chemicals, the cancer chemicals that you would see, your benzenes or your PCE that you hear about, just aren't present. And they've degraded within the landfill naturally over time. I mean, landfills are basically designed, and they are large bioreactors. So as they process, and that's what they, all these caps and liners and that whole system, if you're doing a new landfill, it's still a good way to go, but those things were designed back in the day. They now understand in these old landfills the way is to have liquid infiltration, water infiltration, precipitation, air, etc., circulating through the landfill, because the waste degrades much quicker. So likely most of the organic waste in the landfill has already been degraded. And when that degrades, it also then would take care of some of the other organics that are the bad stuff that's in the landfill.
Well, I think once it's officially closed and you start working there with your solar farm, I think it'll generate a lot of interest in the area.
We hope
And
so.
you may have a lot of other type of businesses contact you also.
Yep.
Who are interested in doing something there, because you're going to have land left.
We hope it's a catalyst for the whole industrial park. I mean, that's kind of the original,
Yes.
Phil's vision
Yes.
for out there is what we talked about. So, years ago. So,
Well, Jeff, for the last 10 years, almost 11 years, we've been at this. And
I know.
obviously, we'd like to see it reach a conclusion. So that's why it's good you come periodically
Yep.
and upgrade us, okay?
Yep.
And
I'll come in. I'll probably come in the summer, give you a progress report, because that's when we should have a lot of these answers on the grant, et cetera, finalized plan, schedule with the schools and everything. So I'll put a tentative plan in with Phil now to be on the agenda then, and
Good.
come in and give you an update.
anyone else have anything? Are you all right?
No, I'm good.
Phil?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, thank you for your, Mr. Counselor, do you have anything?
I don't.
Thank you for your time
you
and
very
your
much.
efforts, and shake them up in Trenton, please.
We're trying. We're
All
trying.
right.
Well,
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a good
Take
evening.
care. Okay, next item, addition or deletion of late agenda items. There's none. Early public comment on agenda items, excluding items listed for public hearing. No one? Okay, 3, discussions. Formal actions may be taken. 2018 CDBG program recommendations and a resolution authorizing the 2018 CDBG program application.
Mr. Mayor, on February 20th, the county kicked off the 2018 cycle for the Community Development Block Grant program. In last year's 2017, we received slightly over $89,000 in allocation. Last year's program called for the money to be used for about $15,500 roughly for accessibility improvements at the Lundy Center, that being the access doors, and then the balance to be used for housing rehabilitation. For 2017, or 2018, I'm sorry, the amount of allocation that we're eligible to get, again, is unknown at this point in time, since the federal government's still operating under continuing resolutions. As with last year, we're looking to, at least planning on about 10% less than we actually were allocated last year. So I'm looking at about an $80,000 budget for this. Briefly to review, the eligible uses include public facilities, projects or improvements or activities to benefit low and moderate income areas or persons, the elimination of slums and blight, or other urgent community development activities. There are a couple things we need to look at. They're so-called benefit tests. They being it's either got to be located in an area with a concentration of a low and moderate income population. And in Hamilton Township, we have 2 census block groups that would qualify, and they're shown on the map, or directly through a survey of households in the area. That's the other way of determining that. Or there's what they call a limited clientele benefit. That's folks that are presumed eligible, which would include abused children, battered spouses, senior citizens, the severely disabled, homeless persons, or persons with AIDS, or again, income-eligible households for specific activities. In my report, I give you, again, recap from last year's allocation, which was $89,587. In addition, there's approximately $56,370 remaining from prior years, that being $3,617 from 2008, and then $52,754 that were set aside for ADA improvements here in Town Hall in 2016. I've given you a brief recap of what we applied for last year. In 2016, we were looking for money to do originally courtroom ADA improvements here, but still Town Hall ADA improvements, and also housing rehabilitation activities. And in 2015, the allocation, along with some prior year funds, were set aside for demolition at 6372 Beacon Avenue. As far as the current program year 2018, there's 3 projects we'd like to move forward with on this. First is continuation of work at the Lundy Center, approximately $16,678 to do handicap parking improvements at the facility. And Steve was gracious enough to go out there, take a look, and has a concept sketch of what it would look like, included as part of your packet. Second is to do pedestrian improvements for Oakcrest High School, specifically improve the 2 what are currently gravel connections across block 1027 lot 1, which is part of the high school property, connecting the school itself to Oakcrest Estates. That project would be $46,186, again, approximately, by the time you include the actual walkway improvements, crosswalks, and signage. And then third would be to spend the remaining estimated $17,136 for housing rehabilitation purposes, continuing on addressing that need.
Phil, that's currently the area that the kids are using
Yeah,
now.
they're doing it now, but it's basically
Just soil, yeah.
it's
a mud
either
path.
DGA
Mud
or
path.
soil, yeah. So this way, at least they'll have a stable surface
Yeah.
to access in pretty much all weather conditions.
Okay.
Do the high school or the housing complex ask for that? How do we come up with
The
that?
high school had indicated to Mike that, some form of improvement through that area would be welcome. We're eligible to spend the money there because it is public property. I asked if we could extend it into the development itself. That's privately owned. We're not allowed to spend the money there.
Is the development aware of this?
Pardon?
Is the development aware of this proposal?
That I'm not sure of. But again, any improvement that would facilitate, the students from Oakcrest and or Davie School or residents of the area being able to cross through to the high school would be, an improvement for all residents there.
Sure it would be, and we should
Yeah,
let
so
them
it's-
know as soon as possible.
Why does this not come under an improvement for the schools? I mean, for like Oakcrest or, why aren't they allocating money for this project?
It's a budget wish for them, that they don't have the money to do it at this point in time. It's public property. The location itself is within the census tract group where it qualifies. That's
So it makes it eligible.
the block group, census block group 3 out of tract 114.04. It's got the highest concentration of low and moderate income households in the
Right, so
township. It's like 65% of the households. And when you look at the block group, the way the areas line up, pretty much the only residential development existing in that area right now is Oakcrest Estates.
Phil, will you reach out to the resident association in there and get the information to them?
Sure.
I think in a lot of ways, I've seen it. I believe it'll be welcomed, especially on those rainy days when you're slushing through that. I think there's a lot of safety involved in this too. Steve, when you went out there, was the area wide enough to be daylight and be able to have good visibility as you go through there?
It is. There's a natural, like a gravel path that's about 6 or 8 feet wide. There's just a few locations, roots are going to have to be removed, but all in all, it's a clearing, it's probably 10 feet wide, it's sort of meander. And Township owned property, my tax map showed about 200 feet into the woods, the path meanders, so I included that in with the estimate. But there's plenty of room to do that. And you can tell, I'm sure when it rains, I'm sure it's a mess, and it's not a safe path to walk on right now.
Sure.
Just curious, it's obviously an improvement over what's there now, but are there any requirements for lighting, given that we're paving a path? Do we have any ordinances that might require lighting?
Especially,
Not so much, that's a good question, but, what I really focused on is I've been out there many times when the children are coming out over Crescent State, crossing the road, it's just
Oh, no, it needs to be, it's an improvement, no question about it.
signage and a crosswalk, the way all these.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty substantial improvement from a safety standpoint. I didn't take lighting into consideration when I helped fill with an estimate.
Okay, well, it's something we,
Is there going to be any
Okay.
security present there?
Any security?
Mhm.
Just the level of security they have from the high school that's existing.
Well, they're now looking for more security, more, you know, protective areas. I'm just saying that, you know, there should be some some police presence or some security there. That's my opinion. Because if they're going through the woods and it's, you know, there may not have been any incidents in there at all, but, you know, in light of all that's going on today, I feel as though, you know, besides being better, you know, constructed, it should really have some sort of security, like Rodney was suggesting lights. Lights are a great security. You know, you're constructing a path that many kids can use, and not every child is, you know, thinking good thoughts. So I'm just suggesting that we have some security there.
Okay, committee. What's your pleasure?
Well, it's important to make sure that this happens. We can always talk a little bit later about some of the other items. But right now, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the 2018 CBG program application.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just make sure you reach out to them, Phil, the resident, and also touch base with the school
I've been in contact with the school about
and then their security personnel there. Okay? Okay, there's no public hearing or adoption ordinances. I guess that's it. We go all the way down to consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7A through 7N.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Personnel, there's nothing. Looks like approvals. Minutes of March 8th, March 5th, 2018 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second?
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. What?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Minutes of March 5th, 2018 executive session.
A move to approve?
Second.
The motion is second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
C, payroll and bills, bill list totaling $1,766,529.79.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Reports, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, Mayor, I have one item. I just wanted to advise the committee that some time ago, we set aside 20 acres for the grasshopper sparrow out at Leapy Park. And as a result, that area has to be maintained. Fish and Wildlife asked us to do a controlled burn instead of mowing it this year. And we did that controld burn
You
today.
didn't get the birds, did you?
No, we didn't get the
I
birds.
came by there tonight and I seen it was all,
Shooed
yeah.
them away first, but
Huh?
Forestry Service did the controlled
They
burn
did a
for
nice
us.
job.
So, a question on that. We are not able to use the land the way we intended because of the, what is it, sparrow, whatever it is?
Grasshopper sparrows.
Grasshopper sparrow, but which of course is a state requirement. There's also apparently a requirement to burn off the land occasionally. Is that, did the Forest Service bear the brunt and most of the cost of that?
Well, the Forest Service did the controlled burn for us at
Okay.
our request. Yeah. It was required by Fish and Wildlife. they asked us to do a burn instead of mowing it this year. We mow it most years, one time, but this year they wanted to burn.
Yeah, it germinates the seeds and the things that encourage the grasshopper sparrow.
That's all I had.
Yeah, I might add that when Rodney and I went up to the Pinelands, we suggested that there be a cap or pointed cap on the lights that light up the football field, because the birds of prey would be standing up there or sitting up and looking to see if they could get rid of some of those. I'm sure it wasn't one of our employees, but
Has anybody verified that they're still there? There were just 2 nesting pairs.
I don't know of anything recently. I did hear that they were still there a couple years ago.
If they weren't there, what would that mean? Would that relieve us of that
I
requirement?
don't know. That doesn't mean they wouldn't come back and nest again there, right?
Yeah, you'd have to perform a number of studies. And
yeah, you'd
To
have to
satisfy
have
the
the
Pinelands.
Pinelands come and study it.
You're not going to be able to just take it back.
And we'd have to pay for the studies, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
They forgot recreation's prevention, and we can't do it because of 2 nesting pairs of grasshopper sparrows. Okay. Mr. Solicitor.
I'm going to violate one of my own rules because I see a lot of folks that I believe are from Tavistock here. First, you should know that it is on my direction that the governing body members have not been permitted to discuss this because it was an active litigation. On May the 3rd of 2016, this case was tentatively settled. I documented that in a letter to their counsel. And the settlement envisioned that in order to bind future owners of the property, we would create a settlement document, send a public notice out. I would file a lawsuit on behalf of the township against the bonding company and the association. And the judge would invite folks who live there to either support the settlement or to oppose it. And part of the settlement was that the bonding company would pay $650,000, and that money would be used in part to construct the road, curbs, and maybe do some landscaping. The association and the bonding company took a position in those negotiations back in early 16 that the basins were, quote, completed items. And because they were completed items, the bond money could not be used to rectify them if they could be rectified. No one has ever told me or anybody that there's a way to rectify the wet basins and make them function the way they were designed to function. And it seems to me that the position of the association is credible in that respect, that it would be totally cost prohibitive, millions of dollars. So the basins were part of the problem. Now, you have to realize that there's more bond money than $650,000. But if you take the basins out of the equation, you reduce what is the claim to other issues that are non-basin issues. And at that point in May, early May of 16, our engineer gave me an opinion that $650 would be an adequate amount of funds to do what you folks wanted to get done. However, your council took the position that your association could directly contract that and get a better price. And by the way, I agree with that concept. And that was their position throughout the negotiations. We had a meeting in late October. Roger and John, I think, were there. Your council appeared, your president appeared, and we discussed it. And at that point in time, I told your council, I said, you have not yet proven to me that you can privately bid this out. I'm not sure I agree with you, because the alternative is that the town has to do it. And if the township has to do it, it's subject to the local public contract law. And invariably, whenever government does things, it costs more than when private citizens does things. A while after that late October meeting last year, I received a message from your council saying he did not believe that you could privately contract it out. Now, that was contrary to the position that was taken for 3 years in the negotiation. So it changed things. Then the Township Committee addressed whether or not we would leave the basins out here because of the position of the bonding company and of the association was the basins were done. They were completed, and therefore bond money was not available to use to fix the basins. I didn't have to take a position with respect to that. If that's the way they wanted to do it, the basins would remain wet basins, we'd finish the road improvements, we'd fix the curbs, and maybe have a little bit of money left to do some of the landscape. But the change in position that you were going to bid it versus us bidding it was a huge change. Mayor Shanker grabbed me after the last meeting and said, just get it done. So about a week ago, I submitted to your attorney a settlement document. I have not had any response yet from him. Going back to the original concept that we would prepare a notice that all of you folks would get. And it would say to you, you have until such and such a date to file an objection or to file a support document with Judge McLean in the Superior Court. And then after that date, Judge McLean would conduct a hearing, and any present owner, any person or entity that has any interest in the common elements or in the units would have the opportunity to appear before the judge and testify. That was always the deal. The glitch was the basins and your belief that you could do it directly, and now we know that's not the case. At the conclusion of that hearing, the judge would either approve the settlement or not. If they approved the settlement, some of the funds out of the $650 would be paid to our engineer to prepare the contract documents in biddable form. That would get the process started. And then the township would use the biddable documents prepared by our engineer and go out for public bid so that someone could come in and put the top coat on your roadways. So, because I didn't want some future owner to potentially come sue your board of directors or the township and say, well, there was a lot more than $650 out there that you could have gotten. So I had to create a mechanism to bind all future owners and all people that have an interest in either your common elements or in the fee that you each own. And the only way to do that was to create a document by way of a court order so that I could record it with the county clerk, so that when you sold your unit, your buyer didn't come back and sue you or your past board of directors or your present board of directors or my client or me or the engineer, because they would be on notice of it. Because when a title company would research your title, it would do an upper court and a lower court search, which would reveal the court order approving the settlement. It protected all of us, and it was a mechanism to get done what you wanted done. Okay, so now those documents are in the hands of your attorney. They have been for a week. The bonding company is ready to write a check. They want to get out. They started out at $200,000. They went to $400,000, and ultimately your board agreed, and I recommended to my client $650,000, based on what I believed was necessary to build the road, fix the curbs. Now, the ball is in your court, and the glitch that's held this thing up has been the basins and the change in opinions with respect to who could bid the documents. Not my change. Your change. I have drafted a document which I think takes care of it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. If a judge says I'm not approving a settlement, I still get the $650. My client will still fix the road. It just will not be with your consent. So, from our end, this township has spent a fair amount of money paying my law firm because we filed a lawsuit to enforce the settlement. We negotiated in good faith with your folks, but the basins have been it's just a monumental issue. You can't afford to fix those basins, and your engineers can't tell you how to fix them. So they're going to be the way they're going to be. It's not going to be part of the settlement. So I'm violating my rule, and I'm violating my opinion to my clients. I've told them all along, they want to talk to you. The last 3 meetings you've been here, Art calls me up Bob, why can't I talk to these people? I said, because I told you not to. So in terms of the information coming from our end, I'm the guy to blame. Because I'm a lawyer, and I believe that when you're in litigation, that's the way it is. But I felt compelled, at least at this point, to tell you where we are and how we got there. Either way, the road's going to get built, one way or the other. Okay? And the delay, I promise you, did not come from this end.
Absolutely not.
So I don't know how, and there's a lot more I could say about this, but I'm very reluctant to because I have to reopen the lawsuit. The lawsuit was administratively dismissed without prejudice. It'll be reopened. And if your counsel agrees with the documents that I've drafted, we're going to have a hearing. And you're all going to have an opportunity to talk amongst yourself, meet with your board, and say this, we're in favor of this, we're not in favor of this. And every one of you will have the right to walk into a courtroom and tell a judge how you feel about it. And at the end of the day, he's either going to say, yes, I bless the settlement, go ahead. Mr. Engineer, draft the documents. We'll get a contract out there in the spring. Or he's going to say no. And if he says no, then you're still going to get your road, but under different circumstances. And that's as much as I am at liberty to discuss with you now, because your attorney's not here. And the only reason I can discuss it with you in a public meeting is that the lawsuit is technically dismissed at this point. But I believe you all deserve some kind of explanation. And I would encourage you to contact your counsel. And he's had the documents for about a week. And as I said, the bonding company's ready to write a check. So, again, I would direct each of you not to ask me a question, not to respond to questions from the field, and that's as far as I feel that I can talk about it at this time.
Thank you.
I appreciate that much information given out to the public. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
The only thing I'll say to you is, once the video's done, you'll hear his comments. You could look at it online. So if you didn't get any of them, and there's other residents you want to hear what he said, it'll still be online. Okay, thanks, Mr. Solicitor. Mr. Engineer.
Yeah, committee members, I have a brief report dated March 19th. The first item I wanted to speak about is, on my report, I discuss a sinkhole on Columbia Road. About 2 weeks ago, I received a phone call from Brett Knoll. There was a sinkhole in the shoulder of the road, just off the edge of asphalt. We quickly went out there and contacted South Jersey Gas. South Jersey Gas, a year ago, installed a 2-inch gas main about 2 feet off the edge of the cartway, and they actually bored right through one of our 24-inch corrugated metal pipes. So we quickly demanded that they repair it, and last Thursday, Kylie, their contractor, went out there and removed an 11-foot section of corrugated metal pipe, and we had them replace it with a new 24-inch corrugated metal pipe. And we kept a close watch on them. They initially wanted to do a repair to it, but Brett Knowles especially wouldn't allow it, and I backed Brett 100%.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
we took care of that. This is on Columbia Road, just north of Oak Street. The next thing, about 2 weeks ago, I wrote a punch list letter to Landberg Construction regarding the 2014 milling and patching program for Malaga Road and Holly Street, and that's on a maintenance bond. So I spoke to Mr. Landberg recently. He's looking to get out there probably as early as next week to start making these repairs. I put him on a deadline because that is a maintenance bond, and we have a deadline coming up in about a month and a half. So he's on a deadline according to the letter that I've written, and it's in my report tonight. On the project inspections, I want to talk about two projects. The McDonald's in town on Harding Highway, you've seen they're moving along at lightning speed. The McDonald's is scheduled to open up probably about the second week of April. There's upwards of about 100 construction workers on the site inside the building and working on site work, which leads me to a little bit of a safety concern. So we're just making sure nobody gets hurt on that site. Safety comes first. So something else that came to our attention is the driveway on Route 50 that you can get to the shopping center there and the CVS, the back driveway that comes off of 50 is in pretty bad condition. There's two potholes that have gotten especially bad with the construction vehicles and the concrete trucks. I just want to let the committee know that I've reached out for Guy Tunney, Mr. Donardo, who bought that shopping center, the Troff family, and Mr. Farmar, and I've directed them by next week, these potholes have to be repaired. Somebody's going to get hurt there or wreck their car, so that's in the works. I had a little bit of a challenge because there's a maintenance agreement amongst all the owners there about proportionate share. So
Let them work that out, right?
I said that the Troff family are going to have asphalt coming to the site next week to the McDonald's. I said, get the work done, and I've gotten a verbal agreement from everybody that's part of that. So
Very good.
that's a priority.
Question, why all of a sudden has the work on that McDonald's suddenly rapidly accelerated? It seems there was a long period where nothing happened, and now it looks like everything's happening.
Yeah, I think what happens on a project like there's so much material and you know, they're so concerned about it. They have such specialty fixtures and countertops, and it just, the scheduling has been a challenge for them. And their original open date was April the 5th. That's changed to about the very middle of April is what they're telling me now. And every day you go by, you can just see the progress. It's incredible.
Okay.
The next item I want to talk about is the Underhill Park bathrooms.
Yay.
That's critical. I understand we've had a couple of challenges with the stall size, and there's some changes on some of the hardware for the stall. So I understand there's going to be an inspection by our construction official this Thursday for a CO. So we need to have these in place and opened up for this coming Saturday.
Yeah, because they have games on Saturday.
On Saturday.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. And we still would like to, as soon as you can get that information out, if you can get that to committee, we would certainly like to be over there to welcome that new the use for the residents and the MLAA.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have two other items. Fifth on my list is that we held a pre-construction meeting for Short Toyota last Friday. Short Toyota is adding, it came through the planning board last year, they're adding a waiting room for their service area, and there some architectural features on the front. They received the variance for the sign, and it's just going to modernize and bring Short Toyota sort of in line with the other Toyota dealerships in the area.
Yeah, well, Short Toyota, when it was first approved, was agreed not to have cars on the grassy area close to the highway. Is that something that's going to be addressed?
We've talked about it at the pre-construction meeting. We talked about it at the planning board. I know Phil and I have talked about it. We've gotten the message to them. They park on that grass area. We repeatedly have told them, do not. I'll keep a close watch that it doesn't happen.
Okay.
The other upgrades on the site there's some additional landscaping that's going in and some handicap parking stalls and signage on the site. The last thing I want to talk about, Judy, I thought about this after you brought up the lighting, the need for lighting for the walkways at Oakcrest High School into the woods. What we could do is we could trim the trees and really open up that wooded space to allow a lot of more light and air and just open that space up. When I walk through there, it appears to be open, but from a safety standpoint, it would not cost a lot of money to do some basic tree removal and really trim a lot of trees and get a lot of visibility in that area. I think
That would be good.
I think that was
That would be very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Township Committee, Rodney.
I recently, in fact, this Saturday, I attended the JCSF, the science fair at Stockton. This is the 43rd year of the South Jersey Science Fair, or Jersey Shore, excuse me. 43rd year that's been conducted. I think I've attended just about all, at least while we're here, it's close to 40. It's really an impressive event. There are, I don't know, 600 plus students from the coastal counties. There are 100 or a little over 100 judges. And the projects, the submissions that were made were just absolutely incredible. I evaluated the upper engineering projects. These are juniors and seniors. And some of these projects, we had one gentleman submitted something that detects the precursor to atrial fibrillation. It's apparently something that's very difficult, the heart atrial fibrillation, something that's very difficult to see, and doctors frequently get it wrong. Well, he built a device utilizing neural networks, and he went to MIT and got a file, electronic file of the fibrillation and what it looks like, and then he tested his device with those files, with those waveforms, and he had a very, very high accuracy rate. And this is something that you could carry, a battery-powered thing that you could carry on yourself, a really incredible thing. I encourage him to patent it or do something to protect it because it's a great idea. But you had other things. You had a young lady that had a thermal electric generator that actually would be installed in roads, and the temperature difference in the roads could generate thermal electricity. It could generate electricity to the extent that when we're talking about our road system, millions and millions of watts, megawatts could be generated using this kinds of techniques. There was a robotic finger, which a gentleman put together using 3D printers, and which he built himself with gears and everything else, and it had a lot of advantages to it. Just incredible stuff. And I would encourage any of you next year when this thing is on, if you have an interest, certainly attend. And if you want me to remind you about it, if anybody's interested, I'll do that. In this area, we had St. Vincent de Paul to participate, and they had they won 2 honorable mentions and an award, a second place award, I think it was, a third place. 2 honorable mentions, excuse me, a third place award. And Pilgrim Academy participated. And of the public schools, we had the Brigantine Middle School participate, but nobody else. And that's really a shame. There were 40 plus schools involved. I have talked to our superintendent of the Hamilton Township Schools. He's expressed an interest in it, so maybe in the future we can get something done. We have participated before, but it's a fantastic event, and I would certainly encourage it. I also attended a ceremony, a scout ceremony for Jonathan, what is it, Siebert?
Charles.
Charles
and Michael.
And that was in fact, the mayor here was there also. An incredible event. It went on for over an hour. I don't know how many awards were given out, but it was really impressive, and the young man has done a great job with all the merit badges and the scouting and whatnot. And it was we had the police from state police there. We had superintendents there. We had, of course, the mayor, 2 committee people, and numerous other people. So it was a very, very impressive event. Just to remind you that we're having the Green Day on May 5th over at the school, Oakcrest. There'll be electronics drop-off, drug drop-off, food, vendors. There'll be some giveaways and shredder event, etc.
May 5th.
May 5th, yeah.
May 5th.
Also, the South Jersey TPO, South Jersey Transportation Program Office, the Citizens Advisory Committee, we're putting together an event for the public, and what it's going to try to address is the Department of Transportation, New Jersey Department of Transportation, how that functions, and one of the things I've continually talked about is how long it takes to get projects done. So we're going to go through the process of getting projects approved. We're going to find out something about how they're organized, and hopefully we can get a better understanding of how they operate and maybe get some better communication. But that's open to the public, and I would certainly encourage anybody that's interested in that to attend. Let me know, and we'll make sure that you're advised of it and that you attend. We also need some more members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. So anybody that has an interest in transportation, there are about 5 meetings a year. And what we try to do is provide citizens' input to the projects that are established, and review the projects, and find out what's going on with our transportation money. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, good. Thank you. Judy?
Yes, I had a focus on this event that was going to happen on Wednesday, the protest march by the students, and I had gotten a hold of John Keenan and the superintendent, and what he expressed was he wanted to keep our kids safe, and so they had an indoor march, so to speak, and they had different classrooms which talked about violence in schools, and how to prevent them, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was a very proactive way to address this nationwide problem that we had, and I thought I'd like to congratulate John Keenan for coming up with that idea. And that's it.
Thank you. John?
Well, I just wanted to touch quickly on, I know that Roger and Rodney and Judy and I were able to attend that event, at the scouting event with Charlie Siebert. I was unable to attend, and I felt bad about that because I had some health issues at the time. But Charlie, I worked with Charlie Siebert close on, and his family. When he came the first time he came, approached us and asked that he wanted to do something for his Eagle Scout project, and he wanted to build 5 benches and put them around town in different places, and he was going to solicit the lumber yards and everything else for the donations necessary to do that. That part of it was followed through, so that was part of that ceremony that happened, and he was recognized for the work that he did. Those 5 benches did get done. Going out tonight, you can see 2 right on the front deck here of Town Hall, 1 on either side. They have a plaque on here with his name and the scouting troop, and then other ones were located along Main Street. So he's a great kid, did a lot of work, and the whole group is deserved everything they got at that dinner. I'm sorry I missed it, and that's really all I have. I know at the end of the month, what is the date for that Intex? I think it's right in front of me. Here we go. March 31st. Intex, that's the new company that's opened up in the old Wheaton project across the other side, with the way the bridge used to go over there. And that company's brought us some workers into town, put some people to work. They have about 130 employees in there, and they're going to have like an open house and take people through and show them what the plant does. And I think it's good to welcome folks like that into town that have made such an investment. They put a lot of money into that property and still have more to put in. They're still doing work. So I think it's great that they're doing this, and if we get a chance to go out and thank them for their work, I think that would be great.
Will there be any refreshments?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, there we go.
That's
That food
most
always
important.
attracts people. That's Saturday, March 31st from 10 to 2. They're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony, a Habitat for Humanity donation, raffle, door prizes, giveaway, food and drinks, family fun, and plant tours. I like their whole motto because they're in it for the long haul. And we do periodically get to go to these Eagle Scout Award ceremonies. And when I think back about the work that these young men do in trying to achieve the coveted honor of being an Eagle Scout, they put a lot of effort into it. And it's a long journey, and along the way they get involved in citizenship, they get involved in all types of interaction with the public. They become more community-minded people. And if you look at a lot of people throughout the course of history of this country, a lot of famous people were Eagle Scouts. So we're very high on supporting them. Many of you see the one that's in here when you go to pay your taxes, the Wall of Honor. That was the Eagle Scout project. There's been a lot. If you go over to Underhill, they're doing a project there where they're encasing around all the flagpoles with brick, and I think it's more than just interacting with the community. It's being involved in the community, and I have a high respect for the Scouts today, both the girls and the boys. So,
And Mayor, I have something to add too, if I could. real
sure,
quick.
please.
I just wanted to thank the residents of Tavistock for coming out here tonight. It's important that that you do come out and interact, even though the committee has been limited to what we're able to talk about and still are. I just wanted to indicate that it's been one of our utmost priorities in the back of our minds to get this issue resolved, and I'm sure it will be resolved. But thank you for coming out.
With that, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public wish to address the committee? Please, come forward.
You have to talk in
You want to
the
get
mic.
the microphone?
Come to the mic.
Get in front of the microphone.
You gotta walk through the
I didn't
microphone.
catch that, I'm sorry.
You have to-
I'm sorry, state your name again?
Alberta Ivachini, 38 Gasco Road, Tavistock. I just wanted to say thank you for the information, because that's what we want. We wanted an update, we needed some information, and we needed your perspective. Your perspective is a little bit different than our perspective, because we hear from our board, and they all have different, so we do appreciate that. I do have one question, though. In your information that you were sharing, you had said that we would do it by spring. Is that spring of 2018?
Well, what I can say is, I can't make the court system move any quicker than they want to. And if your council agrees with the terms that I have written, we probably could get in front of a judge in a month. In that period of time, Mr. Philippone's firm could begin to draft the bid documents. And I can't say it would be spring, but I would think that the time in which to lay asphalt usually ends about early November, Steve?
Yes.
That it should be done.
Probably.
It should be done before.
It's a possibility this year?
Well, the ball is in your court, but
Yes, we understand.
assuming the agreement is made, I would say it's more than a possibility, it's a probability.
Okay.
Because I have Mayor Shanker calling me every day. And
Actually, yeah.
And you folks don't want to plow your snow next year, and I get it.
Costs us a lot of money.
I know.
Well, you know
You
what?
have the equipment, you have the manpower, and your people are on the street. We have to actually pay for that to come into our community, and in some instances, maybe our landscapers are qualified to do that. You know, and maybe they're not. Maybe they have to go and rent equipment. I don't know. I really don't know all of that. But you already have manpower and equipment that's willing, that should do it.
And, you know, the problem
Every
really,
person in the township.
the problem lies, the initial problem lies in the fact that the developer went belly up.
Yes.
And fortunately for all of you folks, the planning board did its job. It made sure that the developer put forth bonds with a solid bonding company. You're talking about Travelers, you're talking about Great Western, these are solid companies. And that makes the system work. The delay did not come at this end, I promise you that.
Well, how did if I can ask, and I guess I just don't quite understand, and then I'm one of the original residents, how did the pond issue and the road issue get intermingled? I mean, to my mind, they should be two separate.
I wish I could answer that,
Okay.
because I have a perfectly good answer for you,
Oh.
but I would suggest that you ask Mr. Wishnick that question.
Okay, I don't even know who that is.
He's your attorney.
Oh, okay. Did anyone here know? We don't. See, a lot of this stuff, just as much as you may think we know or are aware, we're just as in the dark because our boards, our attorneys say we can't say this. And consequently, that's why we as the citizens have gotten together and decided if we start making a presence, it's like we're interested. We really have a stake in this.
It's
We're
like,
in the middle.
it's like Committeeman Kurtz just said, the fact that you learned something here today is because you all showed up 3 times. I violated my own rule, and the only way I'm able to do that is that the actual lawsuit has been technically dismissed for a short period of time, because you're represented by an attorney and I have to deal with you, your attorney. But we all live in this town. And, you know, they get it.
Well, the important thing
We
is,
want to solve
it
the
hurts
problem.
us when we sit here and we hear misinformation and can't say anything about it. The whole thing comes down to you don't have to apologize for the truth, okay? But the good thing about it is at least you'll understand, we spent a considerable amount of money in legal fees because when Amy Gatto, who used to sit up here with me, we go back 11 years, when we made the decision to call the bond, our hearts went out to the residents of your area. And we had hoped it would have been resolved a lot sooner. So it bothers us each meeting not to see you there. We realize you represent a support element, and it's important. So what he said tonight is important also.
Yes, and
Okay.
as I said, we appreciate having some information, because the last meeting, there's nothing.
And the truth will
No, they
be,
can't.
as the project moves along, you'll understand. You don't have to make up any fancy stuff about it. Either you do it or you don't, and let's see what happens, so.
Thank you so very much.
And by the way,
Yes.
so that you all know, as counsel for the governing body and for the township, I don't need your consent, but I wanted it. I wanted you to be involved in the process. I wanted you to say, okay, do the road and do the curb and do this, but don't do that and don't do that. And I wanted you to understand that there was more bond money than what is being put up. But when you took the basins out of the deal, that changed everything. And when you couldn't privately bid it, and that change just occurred in the end of last year in your position, that made it different because now they have to use some of the bond money for the engineer to do the bid documents.
Again, lacking all of that background information is good for us, I'm sure, for everyone who's sitting here tonight, knows that our roads are going to get done. It's not just for the snow, it's also for the potholes, which they're a mess. And you actually handed in those pictures, and there's some more if you want them. It's a mess. The roads are a mess. It's a quaint, charming community. And you drive in, you come into Hartman, and boom, there's a hump to get onto Gasco. And then you go down a little bit further, you can't even drive into our clubhouse because the road actually goes like this. You know, so we need to charm that, you know, and the longer it takes, some of that charm is going because there's wear and tear, and that takes the charm. It is a charming community.
I agree with you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blood?
My name is David Blood. I live at 154 Marucci Place, Tavistock and Mays Landing. And Mr. Salmon, I want to thank you for breaking your rule, because my experience has over the years in several careers, rules are really only made to be bent, broken, or changed. And you broke one, but I think it was a good, positive break, because I think as a result, the residents who are here from Tavistock have a clearer understanding of some of the factors that's been going on. Obviously, we don't know everything because you can't discuss everything, and we're in that window of time when you can say a little bit more about a lawsuit that right now is not active. Am I correct?
You are.
Okay, now, I just want to make sure I understand what I heard tonight. You're taking the basins out of the equation.
I'm not doing that. Your association and the bonding company have done that.
My personal opinion is the basins should never have been in the equation. I like them the way they are. Our golden retriever likes them. He can chase the ducks, the geese, and everything.
You got a water view from your living room,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right from across the street. We
But
have.
let me be very clear. It's not that you're taking the basins out of the equation. It's that you're not using bond money to try to repair the basins, which your association says are not repairable.
Well, I would say we have lived here since 2006, my wife and I, and we have noticed something that in 11 years they've never drained. So it's kind of like something called patently obvious that they're not going to work. I take it they were designed somehow in the planning process for Tavistock, and these plans were approved somehow in the planning process for Tavistock, and now we find that, well, as often happens in this world, something didn't work the way we expected it. I refer back to my experience with the fire service. For years, fire inspectors, arson inspectors would say in court, under oath, that spalling was a demonstration of a flammable fluid used in arson. We now know that the spalling is actually the fluid coming out, the water coming out of the concrete. Because concrete takes many years to fully cure. Boulder Dam is still curing, Hoover Dam. It will cure for 134 years. So these types of things happen. We don't expect things, we expect them to work a certain way, but they don't. So I appreciate the fact that maybe we can say, okay, they're not detention basins, they're retention basins. Well, the stroke of a pen, that can be taken care of, except you're dealing with laws. At any rate, I want to thank you for what you gave us as far as information, because many of us were really not sure what was going on. Also, I do ask that if possible, these streets be top coated this summer or by November. And the reason is my wife and I used to live on a street in our previous residence, and this street was really in bad shape. We actually checked with Public Works and found out, why don't you send the street sweeper in to sweep our street? Well, quite frankly, they were afraid they'd sweep up the entire street and we'd have nothing left. But there was a reason for that. The plan was, and it actually occurred, installation of a sewer system, lengthening and additional water lines, and sewer lines. That all took place, and the street was repaved. There was a reason for not finishing that street. Here, I don't see those reasons. The reasons are that these streets, the base coat is deteriorating to the point where if it is not done soon, there's going to have to be more work done, and I'm not sure a bond would cover that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Blood.
Anyone else?
Good evening, my name is Nicholas Signorello. I'm an alumni of Oakcrest and member of the class of 2016. I'm here purely by coincidence. I didn't plan on seeing my high school being represented, and it's an honor to see that they're doing such good work with veterans coming from a family that is very closely tied with the military. It's a great privilege to see that. And one of the other things that caught my interest is the planning to pave the path between the high school and Oakcrest Estates. Having gone through Oakcrest and understanding, or having friends that live in Oakcrest Estates, and they tell me all the time about how much they wish that path was paved and that the gravel was always an issue. That has always been something that at the school has been addressed numerous times, and especially when it snows or when it rains, the only alternate route to get to the school is to walk down Cologne and onto that long stretch of road, and that is not a safe stretch of road, especially we all know that in the morning there's a lot of traffic that happens on Cologne as people try and get to work. And also I'd like to stress that I do agree with the idea of cutting down the trees. I think that would be great. However, during the night, especially during the winter months when it gets very dark very quickly, trees or no trees, it's still just as dark. So I would encourage the whoever is allocating the money to fund the pavement, that no expense be spared on behalf of the safety of the children who are just trying to get to and from school and their activities before, while they're attending school and after school. So I just want to stress that I do very much agree with the lighting issue. I believe that is a huge issue that should be incorporated into when it comes to engineering the roadway. I think that's a major concern for the safety of the kids, so nothing bad happens to them. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you for your comments.
you.
We appreciate them. Thank you. Anyone else? It's all right.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
you talked about a new company. What does the company do?
They make they do historical woodworking out of composite materials. What that simply is that all the fancy gingerbread and work you see on these older historical buildings, they now replicate that with composite materials. And it's pretty much widely used now all over the country to restore historical buildings. And it's such a big demand that this company is doing very well, and they had to expand by coming to where there was more room for their projects, and that's basically
You'd
what
be
they do.
encouraged when you go in that building to see how huge it is, the
Yes.
whole warehouse. It's enormous.
The
where Intel
Yeah,
is?
yeah.
Is that part of the pilot?
Except they do it.
I think so.
I
think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks
Yes.
like wood.
They're inviting the entire community, and as he asked, there's food there. I give you
wanna
pictures
redo
of
your
it, but
home?
I'm saving them.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public?
Motion to close public portion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.